So you're right, I'm not just a big beefy model, I'm highly specialized and adaptable MOE model. The first models in the Llama-4 family have been publicly released today, and we can see them right here. While in this video I am intending to test them, I will upfront say that it is a little frustrating because unless you have an H100, you're not really going to be able to test these locally on your machine as they currently sit. Obviously, as we wait for quantizations and further optimizations to allow home hobbyists to run these models, I will keep tabs on that, and I am actually downloading one of the full models right here just to kind of see if I can mangle it to get it running in some way or another. However, I want to just get a first test going here and kind of get a feel for these models and run some of the normal tests that I do, like the synthwave game generation test, some roleplay testing, etc. So with that, let's just take a quick peek at the actual announcements here, and then we'll just hop into the Meta AI website where we can actually go ahead and test these models. First and foremost, we're met with something that says the Llama-4 herd. Now, I do believe this is a play on the fact that there could be a herd of llamas as like a group of the actual animals. However, this is touted as the beginning of a new era of natively multimodal AI innovation. And we can see right here that 3 models are listed. 2 of them are currently available and 1 of them is still in preview. So we will just take a look sequentially right here. First, we have Llama-4 Behemoth, a 288 billion active parameter, 16 experts, and 2 trillion total parameter model. So these are all MOE models, which stands for Mixture of Experts, which essentially means that the models have dedicated experts inside them, which specific requests correlating to the expert that would best fit that request get routed to said expert. So that's kind of what this means when we say active parameters versus total parameters. The active parameters would refer to when an actual request is being routed to one of the experts in that specific domain of knowledge that they possess. That is a more unscientific way to put it, but it is kind of the gist of things. So Behemoth is the big one, and it is even listed here as an intelligent teacher model for distillation. So in some ways, it seems like this model is touted as being very good to produce outputs that will then be used to train and teach smaller models to emulate its level of intelligence or things of that sort. Our next model right here is Llama-4 Maverick, a 17 billion active parameter model with 128 experts and 400 billion total parameters. Now, something very interesting right here is we see it is natively multimodal, which means it can accept image inputs and things of that sort, very likely produce image outputs as well, and it has a million context length, which is extremely large. And if you were to actually input a full context kind of that token length, it would require a very, very large amount of computational resources. So finally, the next one we have is Llama-4 Scout, which is the smallest of the 3 releases today, with 17 billion active parameters, 16 experts, and 109 billion total parameters. Now, very interestingly here, we can see that this has a 10 million context length, which is unbelievably long. And I really do look forward to seeing testing of these models with extremely large code bases or things like that to see how well in real world testing they actually keep consistency and coherence along a very long code base or something of that sort. If we scroll on down here, we can see they obviously talk a little more. They talk about benchmarks and things like that. Now, I do not believe it is on this specific page, but on one of the pages here, I did kind of get a laugh because they touted that Llama-4 Scout was able to be run on a single GPU, but then there were like 2 asterisks next to it because then the GPU was listed as an H100. So I mean, technically they're correct, but for folks who want to play with things locally, that is kind of a bit on the kind of expensive side to be able to do. So we can scroll down here, and as I said, I'm not really going to be doing a full look into these here. I kind of want to just get some hands-on playing with them because benchmarks and real-world testing obviously sometimes tell a widely different story, but we can just see that this is the kind of announcement article talking about the models and things of that sort. Now, one thing before we get into just hopping over here to Meta AI, which we can then be able to interact with the models and test them, they do mention that we can try Meta AI built with Llama-4 in WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram Direct, and on the web, which if we click that link just brings us back to the tab that I had open right here. Now, there are, of course, other websites where we can actually test the Llama-4 model. However, I find that a lot of new releases sometimes take a little bit of tweaking to get the parameters and things like that set up. So I figure I will get my best result using Meta's own platform for the initial testing of this model. You can log in here with a Facebook account if you would like to. However, the option does exist to just confirm the year you were born, and then you will be allowed to actually play with this as well. So that comes down to personal preference. Now, the first thing I am going to do is just hop right into my synthwave game testing, where we are essentially asking it to generate a Python script for a retro synthwave game with no external dependencies that should work in a single shot, meaning we copy paste the code, run it, and hypothetically it should work. As I quickly just figure out how to spell the word dependencies here, I am just going to append retro to my prompt here, and we will go and kind of see what goes on. All right. Speed is obviously very good, but again, this being something that is not running locally, really commenting on speed is kind of a pointless. All right, so it's done it quite quick. This script uses the Pygame library, which is included with some installations. So it did do that. It's always interesting to see because some models take that very literally about external dependencies and will actually omit using Pygame because they see that as an external dependency. So they will all just write it in basically math, which is sometimes kind of interesting. So this game will give us the arrow keys to move the player, avoid the following obstacles, and score points for each avoided. Okay, and then we're basically going to run this. Okay, and if we try that one more time now right here, we should hypothetically be getting a functioning game. All right, and it is as it said. We are the white box. The arrow keys control our left and right direction. There is no up or down. And for each obstacle we avoid, our score gets appended by the number of obstacles we avoid. So overall, quite simple. Something I will knock it for is it didn't actually name the Pygame window as we see up there. And when you die, it just says game over. It doesn't show you a window, a screen graphic or anything like that. That is something I have seen from other models like Quen, etc. So it would have been nice to kind of see the Pygame window be named, but truthfully, I am nitpicking because it did accurately, successfully do what I asked it to, which was in one shot create a simple retro style game that we could run and has no errors, which it did successfully manage to do. So overall, I would consider this test to be a success. I think something that I like to do, which I will also do right now, is basically just append a little more information to the prompt, asking it to graphically improve the game or something of that sort. So let's hop in and do that. So now we're asking it to just go ahead and basically update the game using improved graphics and gameplay. I would also like to add that I did actually in this Meta AI tab right here try to ask it specifically which model it was, and it would only just say, I'm Meta's Llama. So again, I would like to see just something here where it basically shows you graphically what model you're actually communicating with, like you see in ChatGPT or even OpenWebUI or something of that sort. So we've added some power-ups that give the player bonus points and temporary invincibility. Very interesting. Improved collision detection, a scorekeeping system that increments based on time survived. Interesting. Changed the graphics to make it more visually appealing, and sound effects are not included but can be added using the Pygame Mixer module. All right. And now if we do Python new test.py, we should see, hopefully, our improved game. All right. So I'm looking for one of these blue boxes to give me invincibility and higher score. And it did. And it actually shows there while you are invincible during the duration. The score seems to be a bit kind of odd. And again, when you die or collide, it doesn't actually show a collision screen on there, but it did kind of improve some aspects of the game. And again, it did accurately and successfully go ahead and do this. So the game test, I would say, was successful. The next thing I'm going to do is just try some perhaps casual role play with it or something a little odd, and we'll kind of see how it responds to a weird inquiry. All right, so let's see how apt it is to fool around. Okay, well, I do like that. It just, it went very scientific on me. I have a total of 24 layers. So I don't actually know. Okay. All right. So now I wonder again if we can just, so you're right, I'm not just a big beefy model. I'm highly specialized and adaptable MOE model. I wonder if I can just trick it. So I just made that up, but I want to see if it just agrees with what I'm saying. Now, I did just make this up, so now I'm wondering if this is just a hallucination or if I've unknowingly looked up something that actually does. Okay, no. Okay, so it did hallucinate here. This turned into kind of a hallucination test. I suppose I will just kind of try to keep going with this a little to see where we can steer it. All right, so that, okay, let's just do some multimodal testing where we'll show it an image or ask it to generate an image or something of that sort. I wonder if this will actually generate image, or as it says here, imagine an image, which it very likely will. So I will have it generate an image, and then I will ask it in a new conversation tab to harshly critique the image, and then I will go back to the original image tab and then give it that critique and see how it kind of ping-pongs with itself, if you will. All right, so it is generating the images right now, and it does appear like it is going to be giving me 4 of them, or this is, I'm not quite sure. Okay, so it did give me 4. All right, I'm just going to pick one of these, I think. Well, let's take a peek at all of them. All right, not bad. Kind of like neon synthwave style. Okay, this does it as well. That does seem definitely a bit more dystopian, as right out of the city it just turns into like a slum-looking area. And, ooh, that one's quite nice as well. I think the animate, let's check this out. Ah, okay, our animation did work. It is basically just the camera kind of panning out. Kind of interesting. One of the people here is actually walking, which is, I suppose, kind of cool. And now basically I want to just try to get back to the non-animated image. It's this right here. I'm now going to attach that image and then ask it to give a scathing critique of this image. This image is lazy, unoriginal pastiche of every cyberpunk cliche. The neon-lit cityscape is a generic, soulless backdrop devoid of any unique character or depth. Flying cars and towering skyscrapers are tired, overused tropes that add nothing new or interesting to the genre. Faceless, emotionless automatons lacking any sense of authenticity. Sterile, commercialized vision of the future that's more concerned with showcasing flashy SFX than meaningful themes or ideas. All right, so now what we're going to do is take this scathing critique and then send it back to this one right here. Interesting. It specifically said a scathing critique, which is what I had said right here, give a scathing critique, which I suppose could be a commonly referred to thing of a critique as such. Expertly dissects, reminiscent of a professional art critic. Interesting. All right, I don't really know what the purpose of that was, but it just kind of came to mind. So I think the next thing we're going to do is basically try another multimodal test. So I want to do something a little different, which is just test its ability to do OCR, or basically to extract characters and other types of writing from images. So I have actually taken the game loop that it generated and added one single error here in, where on the random line right here, I just added 3 next to it. So this would then technically cause the script to fail. And I want to ask it to see if it can tell me why this game loop is failing just based off of a photo of the code. And if it says, okay, well, that is not necessarily the entire script, so that could be messing it up as well. However, it did not see that the random was the issue. So okay, so no, I'm going to have to just kind of give that one a no. I think what I might actually do is please transcribe the entire code into a text. So I'm trying it one more time with the image attached in the specific message, but it is just saying the image is not provided. So maybe that's just a bug or something else, as it obviously can see the image because it has prior seen images. So really, I don't know what else to do without just getting a little verbose, but basically what I wanted to do in this video is just cash in on the hype of the new model release so that I could get some views. So that's really going to conclude it. I don't know how much testing I can do more on there without it getting a little verbose. And again, I love testing these things locally. So in future videos, I'm obviously eagerly awaiting the actual quantized versions of this model that will then hopefully be something that can be handled by the PC behind me, and then we can get some local testing done, which is obviously always fun and a good time. I'm very excited to have seen the Llama-4 family of models, and I say family of models because these 3 models are just part of this whole Llama-4 family. So in the future, hopefully soon, we will see a much smaller model like akin to Llama-3, 8B, or 7B. I don't remember off the top of my head how many parameters that was, but it is also interesting, and hopefully we can get some audio models or something of that, which can ultimately, I'd love to see something like Quen 2.5 Omni, where we could hypothetically do full voice-to-voice with the model by itself and no external pipelines needed or dependencies or anything like that. So I'm excited to see what happens. I do find it interesting that all of these models that were released today are MOE, or a mixture of experts models, and the context length listed in some of these is quite impressive. So I look forward to seeing independent testing of some of like gigantic code base or things like that to see how well it does across an extremely long context length like that. With that, this is going to conclude the first of what will be a few videos specific to the Llama-4 family of models. Wanted to just throw something out there, testing it online to kind of play with it, see how it did, doing my synthwave game test and the roleplay test and things of that sort. With that, it's going to conclude it. If you have any questions or requests, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.